Welcome to Digitized Spotlight, your lens into the best builders in consumer crypto. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Winnie. On this series, we explore some of the latest trends emerging in consumer crypto and chat with those building at the forefront. On this episode, we dig into the growing Layer 1 and Layer 2 landscape and chat with MegaETH.
We chat with Shuyao, co-founder of MegaLabs, the developer of an EVM-compatible real-time blockchain, MegaETH. We also bring on the founders of MegaMafia ecosystem apps, Noise and Pump Party. Let's get started.
Hey Shuyao, it's great to have you on this episode of Digitized Spotlight. So we are days away, should I say, from MegaETH's public testnet, and we're very excited to learn more about the chain and its ecosystem.
Thank you for having me, and I'm excited and very anxious every single second.
Awesome. So as you've acknowledged, the crypto infrastructure space has gotten saturated. Still, MegaETH has been able to attract both builders and attention. Can you start off by sharing what led you to build MegaETH, what makes MegaETH different, and what's been resonating with builders?
Absolutely. So I have been in crypto for many years, I would say almost too many years, and have seen a lot of infrastructure plays. Funny enough, when I've been at Consensus I was at Consensus for 6 years. And starting from about 2020, that's when you had loads of EVM-compatible chains. So you had all the layer twos, you had all the Avalanche, I don't know if anyone remembered. You also had Phantom. So part of my job back in 2020 was actually evaluate all the chains for MetaMask integration, because MetaMask was one of my products. And throughout that process, I had one major takeaway, is that not all the chains are built the same because not all the blocks are quality blocks. So you could have all the EVM layer twos from Optimism, from Arbitrum. You can also have Avalanche, the C chain, but the experiences are drastically different. And more importantly, almost none of the infrastructure was actually fast enough for end users, which are the builders. I'll give you a concrete example. I was leading global BD at Consensus, so I was covering MetaMask, Infura. I was also covering Truffle, which I had to sunset a few years ago because of lack of usage. And my latest product was Linea, which was a ZK EVM on Ethereum. And I was obviously using all my resources and trying to persuade builders to launch on Linea. And one of the builder he was a trader at Jump. I work with friends. I was telling him, I said, dude, what are you doing? Just be a trader. Like crypto is such a wild west. You can build something and actually, be legendary. So he left the job and he was gonna build a pub DEX on Linea. And this is where reality hit. And he called me the other day. He said, sister, like I really can't build on Linea. Like the chain is actually not fast enough.
Like, sorry, I tried, but it does
Right,
not
yeah.
work.
And it really hit me that no matter how many different EVM chains we have, they're just not good enough. And that's why you're seeing is developers are actually cheating the chain, right? So if they're building a game, actually only the NFTs are on chain and the games are not on chain. If you're building a social app, perhaps the NFT is on chain or your account is on chain, the interaction is not on chain, which means you can't really get a social graph or knowledge graph effectively on chain. So that was the biggest takeaway. And then I wasn't thinking about leaving Consensus, but then I met my co-founders, Elon and Lei. So they are, technical big brains in a sense. Not only they understand how to build a distributed system, but they're also highly opinionated in terms of what is the end game for performant blockchain. So when I, first talked to Elon, and I thought, oh my God, it's the chain is called Mega Rollup. What a 2017 scam. Why would anyone name their chain Mega Rollup? Then I learned that Mega is 10 to the 6, which is the performance metrics. But more importantly, the idea of building a chain that doesn't have consensus was extremely appealing, right? Most blockchains, whether you're layer 1 or layer 2, the moment you introduce consensus, you slow down. So the architecture of MegaETH really resonated with me because I feel like, oh my God, for the first time, I don't have to go back to developers and apologize. Like, sorry, the chain is not fast enough and you should put
Yeah.
things in the chain. Yeah.
I think it's always helpful to contextualize for like the details for listeners, I guess like with kind of what you're talking about right now, what are the use cases specifically that are only possible in MegaETH that maybe aren't possible on other high performance chains like say Solana or even now with other L2s maybe that have arrived in last year, like, Base or even some of these newer like move chains?
Yeah, absolutely. So the key differentiation for MegaETH is latency. Latency really matters. And just to throw some numbers out there, the Monad is aiming for 1 second block finality. Solana is around 400 millisecond. Arbitrum is 265 millisecond. And for MegaETH, like right now on our private testnet, it's around 15 millisecond. So latency really matters to especially consumer experiences, right? So when you are hitting something in the app, you want it to go through ASAP rather than waiting. A very concrete example is one of our flagship products is called Sweep. So Sweep is enabling streamers to place real-time wager when they're streaming. So you're adding a bit of fun element to
Yeah.
streamers. And so they were deploying on Blast before, and then they told us it's like, you're having a streamer who's streaming real time something to their end user, and you're trying to place a bet, and that bet is not going through. So they really cannot build anywhere else other than us. So that's
Yeah.
the reason they came to us. Another host of experiences is really DeFi, right? So most DeFi application, what you're seeing on Ethereum mainnet or on layer two, they work. Like I'm not claiming that they don't work, but they don't have the efficiency that Mega is in power. So for example, you can actually have arbitrages for the first time on chain, and you can deploy strategy as well. And to take it a step forward, you can actually democratize those arbitrages as a stable coin, which is what Collab+ is doing. And they're raising round from like leading institutions as we speak right now. So what you're getting is not only market efficiency, but really new financial primitives that you can't have before.
Yeah, it's almost like new social and financial primitives with kind of that streaming example you're using is like today, like even on something like Twitch, like if you're able to make predictions on something, it needs to be quite instant, and a lot of chains are just not performing that way. It's helpful to contextualize.
Yeah, that's super helpful just to help us understand. So if you're maximizing for latency, are there other trade-offs that you're making in the chain design?
Yeah, and there is a huge trade-off. We're very proud of the trade-off we've made. The trade-off is real-time censorship resistant. So by having our latency comes from a centralized sequencer design. So you're not waiting for multiple sequencer to agree on something. You just have one that's just streaming blocks. And as a result, your censorship resistance really rely on the Ethereum mainnet. That's a trade-off we are making. I don't think the trade-off is as big as people have imagined. In fact, most layer twos have such trade-off. What we're doing is just to take it to the extreme.
I think that kind of brings us to our next question, which is like the elephant in the room in this cycle, which is Ethereum itself, right? Mega ETH being kind of making that bet on Ethereum itself. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on Ethereum in the next couple of years and decades? And why build kind of an Ethereum aligned chain?
Yeah, we tend not to think we're Ethereum aligned. I mean, literally, the way I phrase
It's in
MegaETH
the
is more
name.
is in the name, yeah. But the alignment is a tricky one. I think about ourselves as Ethereum aligned based on we're very much application focused, and that's actually why I think Ethereum is falling off. But we are not aligned in terms of like, our technical roadmap has to agree with what the EF wants, right? Like we're not gonna be a base rollup. We don't use ETHDA because that thing is actually not performing enough. So if I zoom out, why do we choose ETH? It's actually about what exactly is MegaETH trying to build and where does the future value accrue for blockchain? I am of the view that the value accrue for any infrastructure is on the execution environment. That is the sequencer, right? Why? Because the sequencer and the execution environment is actually the one that owns the developers. Once we own the developer, we have this really fast block production engine. We can choose where to settle on. So we chose to settle on Ethereum because it's the most decentralized, secured settlement layer that gives us the liveness of transaction. We chose to use EigenDA because it's the most performant data availability. We're now choosing Celestia. If one day Celestia is more performant, I'm more than happy to switch. But the real value accrue of any blockchain is execution environment. And that's what we're really good at. The Ethereum alignment is a technical decision. And obviously, I'm a big fan of ETH because it's also decentralized. But yeah, I would almost like, sometimes I want to pivot ourselves to like the fastest execution environment you can ever imagine.
No, that's helpful color. I think about a year ago, I remember reading your piece on Substack where you wrote about why crypto, and I loved it. And as someone who's been in crypto yourself for multiple decades now, and you've definitely seen the good and the bad, being from consensus and kind of seeing it through multiple cycles, can you kind of elaborate on some of the recent like paradigm shifts that you've seen and how they've reflected in the design choices and how you kind of built MegaETH, kind of how you're thinking about your community and cultivating that ecosystem, and kind of what you're doing differently than kind of what you've seen in the past?
Yep. I think it's such a bittersweet question, to be honest. I'm sure the two of you probably feel the same. It was, cycles of like something new coming up and then bear market, there's nothing, then cycles
Yeah.
of something new. Um, and I think not, it's always a pendulum, right? I really do I think that we've swung to the extreme end of hyper financialization application. But as someone who's like deeply respect the market, I'm fine with it. But there is an outcry of something new that we have to provide to the end user. I'm actually of the opinion that if we don't get something out that's useful to the market, I actually think crypto is gonna die. I think will remain
Yeah.
as a Ponzi pumped up, pump
Yeah.
and dump. Yeah. And the way I'm thinking about it is I think about MegaETH and our builders as people who are providing emotional value to end user. So what is emotional value? I think people in general are looking for four things out of their life. They're looking to generate wealth. They're looking to create bond, human connection. They're looking to flex their status, no matter what it is. And lastly, they're looking to be entertained. So when I think about the MegaETH application, I think about we're creating a context where they suffice any of these needs with a crypto element in it. What does it mean, right? So Sweep is an example where you're playing this bet or wager, it has crypto in it, but crypto is now outwardly on the streaming platform. We're having a fully on-chain game. So the game is on-chain, but it has a crypto element, which is a digital economy represented by token on it. There's this one wacky idea that I'm a big fan of. They're trying to bring the whole world on-chain via 3D model. And you might be asking, first of all, how is this different? Like, why would anyone create a 3D model? But to me, it is a new way to train human behavior when they're interacting with a physical architect. So allow me to explore a little bit more. So the team is they used to have a drone company, but they also happen to be archaeologists. So when they fly drone, they go to different places. They're trying to tell a story, and they're trying to bring this story, this capability to everyday users. So when you go to beautiful places, rather than just taking picture, uploading on Instagram, you take a lot of pictures and they allow you to generate a 3D model and to tell a very different picture. So then you're actually flexing your experience, your interaction with the physical landmark in a very different way than traditional picture. But more importantly, they're going to tokenize this 3D model and create a place for you to sell this to like a game engine or to whoever who might need it. So these are the emotional value that's very much hidden. You're not going to see crypto on it, but you are interacting with a physical infrastructure in a completely different way.
Yeah, you've touched on a number of these teams that are you're building with that you're helping kind of incubate. Um, would love to learn more about like how the Mega Mafia has formed. Like, are you coming up with these particular ideas that you would like to see created that are net new around blockchains, and then you're finding teams? Just would love to understand a bit more around the structure for the ecosystem, as I know that's been quite novel, and you've already touched on a number of these kind of teams that have been coming up.
Yeah, I've 16 of them. I can talk about them all day, every day. So Mega Mafia was, I think, my attempt to, Winnie, as what you mentioned, break out of from the current hyper financialized cycle, or the existing token game. The original vision was, and I hate to say this, I just think most app builders are not good enough. And I think they're not good enough because they're being lazy.
Yeah.
When they
I mean,
see some,
it's tough because we're in an industry where people are rewarded for building the nth fork on a new chain versus building something new that requires much more innovation and right? Like I think it's tough because like you said, the pendulum, moves from left to right and we are rewarding grifters sometimes.
exactly. So the idea is to find builders who are building 0 to 1 applications
Yeah.
that you can't see them anywhere else. And the second criteria is the builder needs to have the creativity, right? They need to think about, where do I need crypto, and where absolutely I don't want a crypto to be seen anywhere else. And the last one is they're not grifters. So how do I tell, right, if someone's grifter or not? So one criteria, and the reason the program is, I think, so sticky and successful, is that I can only tell someone's character if I spend time with them. Which is why last year we had a Berlin takeover where we flew like around 15 builders to Berlin. We all lived together, we all built together. I literally just trapped them into a WeWork space and be like, think, like, what do you want to build? How do you want to build it? And let's brainstorm, right? And a lot of builders actually left halfway because maybe they decided to launch a token on Solana and make a lot of money. I gave them a blessing, but they're not part of the program. Some of them had an idea probably, but couldn't raise enough money, right? I will support them the way however I want, but they're not part of the Mafia program. So it become a very selective builders program for people who actually want to build for the next 5 years. So now there was also a lot of hiccup, right? People had like co-founder breakup, people had to pivot, but it was all really worth it, I would say, because selfishly, I enjoy building the apps more than just building another chain. And an example is the noise team. So, when they joined us, they wanted to build a different prediction market, barring, what Poly Market has done. But over the month, and we were just like, dude, like this thing is not innovative enough. So then they kind of just came together with us and be like, you know what? The Rather than building another prediction market, what we're really trying to do is to allow people to trade trend, right? You can trade the trend that skinny jeans are coming back. We often joke internally that if we can short nightclubs, we will short nightclubs, right? No one goes to nightclubs anymore.
Wait, I
So
went long nightclubs.
you
I
will
would
not,
take,
oh no.
oh my God, I'll take the other side of the bet. Gen Z and Gen Alpha we need to bring back clubbing.
I thought the Gen Zs,
That's a great market we
as
should
a,
kind of go back on.
yeah, the market maker is gonna trade on both sides. Uh, I thought the nightclubs are now in coffee shop. Maybe I got the wrong memo.
That's like very LA culture, but I think, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see.
So,
Time will tell.
yep. So yeah, this is the Mafia program. A lot of in-person, a lot of co-building, a lot of pivoting together.
Cool. And one other thing that has been unique about MegaETH in addition to MegaMafia has been the emphasis on community ownership. Um, I know that you did I think one of the largest rounds on Echo, around 10 million at the same terms as your seed round. And then you most recently did, I think around a $13 million soulbound Fluffle NFT sale. Can you talk a bit more about how you're thinking around capital formation and how this connects to your ecosystem and community building?
Yep. If I had the choice of not taking VC money, I would have done that, but I'm not as wealthy as Jeff. So it's just, um, I mean, you guys are a VC. I think uh, it's very difficult to find VC who are highly opinionated and actually go along the journey with you. I think to some extent, like almost everyone and their mother claim to be VC in crypto. The bar is so low these days. It's kind of a joke sometimes. But regardless of that, what I was really trying to do is actually copy what Ethereum has done. Ethereum was successful because people got in the protocol at lower valuation and they were supposed to support the protocol and have both wealth generation and also flexing a status. So the Echo sale was the first attempt to do that. we were the largest sale on Echo, and kudos to Kobe, who's been a close friend of ours. And the idea is to have as many real people to get on your protocol as early as possible. And typically for the last 2 years, people get in by airdrop farming, which, as you guys know, is actually counterproductive to the protocol and to the end users. So when we did the Echo, we were 5x oversubscribed. We literally broke Echo. I think we also broke base at some point because the money was on chain. So after seeing that, we were like, maybe we should do something more. That's crypto native, which is how we got the Fluffle, which is an NFT sale. Now I have to emphasize that I actually regret launching Fluffle right after Echo. There are multiple reasons. I think the first one was we just didn't have a really good user experiences. We're a protocol team. We're not like an NFT minting team. So the experience was like actually fucking dog shit. So I apologize to anyone who had to go through that. But the second one, I think, was we should have just waited a bit longer to do another sale opportunity. But regardless, the intention was good, but I really wish I had done execution different way. If there's any founder who's listening to this, DM me if you're actually wanting to get skin in the game to your community in the right way at the right time. My DM is open for this.
Yeah. I always appreciate when people are like upfront about all that, like kind of like what I don't know, like lessons, kind of like when things don't go right. But for what's worth, I thought the NFT sale was very smooth and I thought the process was very nice. A few days ago, you also mentioned how in our industry we're like in a very weird place. And I can't help but really agree, right? Like there's extreme optimism on one end of the spectrum. We have the SEC dropping their case against Consensus, your old employer, Robinhood, Coinbase, Uniswap, Kraken, Open, like everyone. And then the other end, there's like extreme pessimism from like these PvP shitcoin traders, like you mentioned, right? And hopefully, as we look into kind of the mega ETH testnet, sentiment will begin to change as you guys launch into this weird choppy market. How are you feeling? What do you think anticipate will happen? Maybe some of the consumer apps that you've mentioned, like Noise, Sweep, will kind of help change that sentiment. But like, how are you guys internally thinking about it? How are you personally thinking about it?
Yeah, there's very little we can control the market. I've learned my lesson. I think market is always right. And I think those who are optimistic, and would always say like believing crypto's world domination will always be proven right. I remember deep in the bear in 2019, I had a coffee chat with Joe, and there was really nothing there. And it was like a very early like DeFi flame coming out. And Joe, in his very typical, very calm and determined manner, was like, "What do you mean? There are so many things going on." And I think he's right. Like when
Yeah,
you look under the hood in the weeds, there are a lot of things going on. Stablecoin is coming on, RWA is coming on. I'm not sure about all this reserve thing. I mean, it's crime season, so I guess you can pay the government to get your token listed. It's almost like none of my business. It's also not my strength, to be honest. I like don't play that game. But looking deep under the hood, I think that MegaETH is doing a lot of bold attempts and almost like risky bets. When I talk to people about MegaMafia, I think they should mock me. I really think so. Like we have like Lemonade, which is a event SaaS business on chain, right? So if someone who's like doing a 3D model on chain with streamers, with Pump Party,
yeah,
with playing, which is like a HQ trivia game, like all of this could go to zero. But what I'm hoping our testnet can achieve is to create this like maybe a little bit delightful and a little bit aha moment, like, oh, this is actually
yeah,
how I use crypto. And if that can be I think, an introduction for people to think outside the box, I think I've achieved something. I think the other part is, you know, Ethereum is the way it is there right now. I'm hoping to revive a lot of builders' optimism toward building on Ethereum as well. I think I really believe in the infinite garden. I don't think Ethereum should function like Solana Foundation or any of other corporates at all. So yeah, I'm really hoping some of the builder would come back to ETH
yeah. Making Ethereum great again.
again.
Well, I can't end this podcast and I wouldn't be doing my job well without mentioning the word hot pot, which is very core to your brand and DNA. I think Hot Pot DAO started a few years ago at a conference, because you were craving like spicy Asian food, and now it's become kind of like, what do you call it? A momentum of movement of some sort. And I think in your words, you wrote, Hot Pot mirrors the ethos of crypto. It's inclusive of all ingredients, embraces all behaviors and flavors, and only deepens with time. So my last question for you is, if Mega ETH was a hot pot, what would it be? What apps would be what ingredient? What is the soup base? What are the ingredients you want to add to this hot pot? Let's end it on a fun note.
This is by far the best question I've got ever gotten from
I
any
love that.
podcast.
I mean, it's like core to your brand. I freaking love hot pot. Like, are we talking like a split pot with like, very degen spicy on one side and like a miso? Yeah, walk me through.
Wow. I really have to say this is the best question I've ever gotten, and it really gets me to think because it's both philosophical and practical with our yeah. So if we are a hot pot, I think our DeFi apps are the soup, are the
Oh
liquidity.
wow. Okay, good.
Without DeFi, without like capital efficiency, I don't think we have a pot at
Mhm.
all, right? Blockchain are asset ledgers first and foremost. I think of our consumer apps as like funky ingredients, and the the
Enoki
the the,
mushrooms.
the enoki, the beef trout, the squid that's cut into like
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
shape
yeah,
that you
yeah.
can like put it in. And I think of our team as chopsticks. We're
Oh, wow.
we're able
Yeah.
to put you
Or like,
into the pot.
yeah.
We give you the right
You
temperature because
mix, yeah. You add different ingredients at different times. I like it. What is
yeah,
fish balls?
fish balls. All right. Because the good fish balls, they have things in the middle, right?
Yes,
You
the
you
row in the
bite
middle.
them,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. It's like
burst. Yeah,
surprising. It's like you bite,
surprising.
it looks something different on the outside. What's that?
I think Palm Party could be that.
Okay, cool. Pump party, which we're having chat with next on this next
Yes.
segment of the pod. So perfect segue. Well, that's awesome. Um, let's kind of have this mega ETH hot pot then.
Thank you. That was such a good question. Wow.
Awesome. So Shuyao, it's been so great to have you on the podcast. Where can listeners find you and learn more?
I'm on Twitter, hotpot_DAO. I also tweet a lot of nonsense, so pardon me.
We love nonsense. Cool. Thanks for coming on.
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys.
As we discussed, MegaETH has placed a big emphasis on cultivating its ecosystem with the MegaMafia Accelerator program.
So for our next segment of this podcast, we're bringing on two ecosystem teams, Noise and Pump Party, to talk about what they're building. So without further ado, let's hear from Noise.
Hey, Gabriel, it's great to have you on this mini part of the segment. So, I guess just get started. Tell us more about Noise, how it got started, and what inspired you to start building on MegaETH.
For sure. So we kind of came from this background of prediction markets. We'd seen what Polymarket was doing. I think we calculated like 50 to 60% of the betting volume was sitting in these idle stablecoin pools on Polygon. So we kind of had this initial hunch to build this DeFi composable prediction market and, plug things into Aave, into USDE, and see what kind of native yield we could give back to users. In the process of doing that, I think we really ran the whole binary option thing to its conclusion. Like we looked at the addressable market for anything we could do. For us, it was really just presidential election, macro movements, whenever JPOW was speaking, and it was like, okay, that's that, game over, right? But we were still really into this idea of liquid markets on information. So we kind of asked ourselves, like forget about binary options for a second, forget about any trading instrument. If you could stream information on chain in real time, what would be the most valuable thing you could possibly think of? And we kept coming back to attention, right? So like if you can quantify that, if you can stream it on chain, can you create trading instruments around that? Can you give the people the ability to long or short the direction of social capital? And in doing that, could you create this really, really cool information market where people would be able to speculate on, narratives, people, brands, and kind of solve for discoverability in that way? Um, that's kind of how we got to noise. That whole thing kind of snowballed, and we ended up building this, like information market, social fi primitive, whatever you want to call it. We're very excited about it. But we got started from MegaETH. I think our thesis is that fast chains are becoming commoditized, and all that really matters at the end of the day is the UX, right? So MegaETH just seems like a great place to begin with. The team has been incredibly helpful in terms of, social capital, getting us the resources we need. When you see teams rejecting $2.5 million grants to build on MegaETH for free as part of the Mafia program, like that's a pretty bullish signal. So we stuck around.
I love that. I also think I saw on Twitter today something about noise coming after TikTok. What was it? What was the
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit of a shit post, but it was my co-founder Luca saying that we're going to replace TikTok. Who
Yeah,
knows? Maybe one day we will.
one day. You heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So from what I can tell, you're currently building a wait list. So when will you be launching and what can listeners expect to try out soon?
For sure. Yeah, I think like the team itself kind of views waitlists as like this vanity metric. I think what we really care about is keeping more demand and supply, at least in the early versions of Noise. So we've kind of built this invite-only curated group of kind of power users that have expressed a lot of interest in Noise, and we'll probably dog feed the product out to them. So we'll be ready on day one of public testnet. And we'll probably work through some sort of invite code program to incentivize people to join and see if they can game the system really, because that's something we really want to test out.
And what will the product look like for those early invite users? Like, there'll be certain themes that you can bet on connected to Cato, or what will be the MVP look like?
So we'll offer maybe 20 to 30 markets, basically ranging from narratives in crypto, different types of projects, and then, like some sort of KOL based game or something like that. Although not too sure on the third one. But yeah, I mean, the vision for us is to start out very focused with crypto native topics. I think like there's a strong user interest there that we've curated. But obviously, we see Noise as this non-capital C crypto company, which means we very much have the aspirations to Trojan horse this thing out and, curate markets for different types of industries in the world where, speculating on attention and being a trendsetter is so important, right? It's like entertainment, tech narratives, whatever you want to call it, like the vision's quite large.
What do you think will be either the a trend or the market that makes the most noise and goes viral that gets people outside of crypto Twitter onto noise?
Oh, that's a hard question. I mean, whatever happens, we need to double down. So like I can't predict the future here, but um maybe once we branch out, like different types of things going on with mainstream culture. Like a few weeks ago, Kanye West was like crashing out on the timeline and he started doing like nitrous oxide again.
A few
Um,
weeks ago, right now.
yeah, it still is. So like that would have been, I think, like a prime moment for Noise to be like, yo, we're in the room. This is a really fun use case.
Cool. Yeah, excited to play around. Thanks for coming on, Gabriel. This was awesome.
Cool. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, Arthur. It's great to have you on this mini part of the segment. So, I guess to get started, tell us more about Pump Party, how it got started, and what inspired you to start building on MegaETH.
Yeah, sure. So let's see. Um, for Pump Party, essentially for a couple of years I was at Google and I was so bored. I was just making these random products on the side. I've had some like viral hitters, thankfully, and I ended up randomly in Dubai, and then I met Shuyao and Namik at Hot Pot DAO,
All
and
top mentioned.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I know I could feel the power emanating from them, right? And I ended up coming with them to Berlin and we were just shooting around ideas and we started thinking about HQ trivia and like how potentially tokenomics could augment the experience. And we actually came up with the idea together, Namik and I. And yeah, so I guess I'll go over very briefly what
Yeah.
Pump Party. So it's essentially HQ trivia, but much better. And I know it's not a great description, but our secret sauce really comes from our team. So on my side, I actually had a consumer product that I created. It's for this niche called reality shifters. It's very specific. They're quite young, but I have around 1.5 million downloads from that, and that just came from a ton of iteration, talking with people all the time. My co-founder, he's has a media production company previously, and he has a very good understanding of what drives engagement, what drives virality. And our show host, he's a Nihar's friend, but he was supposed to be on Love Island last year, actually, but he had a girlfriend. So yeah, but and then our head of design, he's also cracked. But
I love
yeah,
that. Love Island UK or which one?
I think it's US, right? Yeah.
Cool. Super cool. I guess like maybe it's helpful to give the listeners a bit of a preview on kind of like what people can expect to do on the app, on Pump Party to begin with during testnet.
Yeah, sure. So for Pump Party, initially we were really focusing 100% on the entertainment aspect. So the incentive layers will kind of layer in later, and I have actually a whole spiel about that decision. But for Pump Party, essentially, it's an app. You come in, you have the show host, and it's incredibly interactive. You're playing games with the host, you're doing voting. There's all these sound effects, there's all these animations, and it's almost like a storyline that you're being pulled through for the entirety of the show. We kind of view it that HQ Trivia, they touched on this lightning in a bottle, this new category of two-way entertainment where every viewer is an active participant. And we're essentially trying to fully actualize that category that we feel that they didn't completely actualize.
And so, in terms of MegaETH and crypto, building on blockchain, like what is newly unlocked that HQ Trivia couldn't do?
Well, I guess one aspect is the payment rails are much more efficient through crypto. So for example, everyone will have a Privy wallet, but we completely kind of obfuscate that fact from them so that they don't even know that it's crypto, right? And I really feel like for mass adoption, that's what's needed. The other aspects are we'll maybe in the future introduce a no loss lottery mechanism, which once again is also uniquely enabled through the efficient like financial like tooling. And yeah, I guess like there's one or two more. One of them is when you have competitions that are like financialized and it's high stakes, there's a huge unlock from having all that competition data being on chain in an immutable form that people can then audit in a trustless fashion. And the corollary of that is that this introduces composability as well, right? So that people can even create uh, prediction markets on the competitions. They can create just kind of derivatives around different enactments of the gameplay. Um, I think I don't have maybe the best words to describe it, but the composability aspect I feel is to me one of the most interesting aspects, and I am very confident in that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's almost like other people could potentially build on top of that because it's quite composable. I'm thinking of something like
totally.
this is kind of like HQ trivia, but like Crypto the game, right? Like they're
Yeah.
launching something this week too. And what's cool about Crypto the game is because it's all on chain, there's been like all these like offshoot kind of like apps or experiences that kind of built on top of that other people have been kind of leaning in towards. So that's kind of like what I'm envisioning, but maybe I'm not sure if it's similar.
Oh, totally, totally. And hmm, we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Awesome. So if I want to play, I sign up and you're launching with testnet for this first. season, or like, I guess, how can people get involved?
Yeah, so yeah, if you go to pumpparty.com, it has a kind of rundown of our product. You can sign up for the wait list. We're doing our pilot episode on the 15th, so in 2 weeks. So yeah, it will be
I
on
love
the
it.
App Store. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on Digitized Spotlight.
All right, cool. Thank you so much.
Bye, Arthur.
Thanks for joining us as we chat with Shuyao, Gabriel, and Arthur. It's been exciting to learn more about MegaETH's journey, teams building in the ecosystem, and what to expect for testnet.
Agreed. It's been awesome to learn about MegaETH's value proposition and what's attracted so many builders within crypto to kind of build on that ecosystem. Follow us as we chat with more founders building at the intersection of consumer and crypto. Bye.
Bye.